With Season 3 fully underway and everybody just building Mosaic Phoenix Strike Assassin, which is absolutely fantastic except for all the GPUs that it's melting, this one little change, which I touched on in the Demon Machine Enchant Sorceress, which is actually the build I'm running this season, and it absolutely melts even on budget gear. I'll have a video out on that soon. This one little change to how just Fire Mastery enchant work actually has rippling ramifications against every single ranged elemental build in the game, as long as you're attacking with a weapon. While the post says all they fixed is how Fire Mastery will now apply to elemental damage on ranged attacks, double dipping from both the initial enchant bonus and then again when you attack with the skill, this has always worked for melee builds, but now it worked for range builds as well. That's why our enchant bow Sork is doing something like 25,000 damage on endgame gear in an explosion. But I hinted at something that since then we have gone and tested and is absolutely true. This isn't just for Fire Mastery, and it's just not for enchant either. Every single skill or item which adds flat elemental damage to an attack now benefits from +2 elemental damage when used on a ranged attack. The potential builds that might come out of this change are not limitless, but it's definitely a lot bigger than I think a lot of people might be considering right now. And that silly build I showed you at the start is a Venom Guided Arrow Assassin that goes from doing a pittance of damage against a target to being able to 1 or 2 shot cows, and it's just an elite sniping P1 build, but it's an assassin that uses a Venom bow and Death Sentry, and it blows up cows just with the best of them. Let's use that bow Venom assassin that I have as an example so that I can better highlight what I'm talking about here. Let me just state it very plainly so that it's right on the table. All sources of elemental damage, fire, cold, lightning, or poison, that can be applied by a ranged attack skill or buffed onto a character who then makes a ranged attack, now benefits from +2 elemental percentage damage gear or skills that you have on your character. So this assassin, which is predominantly built around the idea of Venom, adding a massive amount of poison damage that's dealt over a very short time, and then using Widowmaker to use Guiding Arrow, which always hits so that you can always be applying poison at the maximum breakpoint of 9 frames, meaning that you are permanently dealing your maximum potential of poison damage against the target at all times, since you're hitting them before the poison would run out. Is not a new build by any means, it just was garbage before. Because while the character screen might show you a huge amount of poison damage, and a lot of it was being applied, sources of +2 elemental damage, e.g. this Bramble armor here, were only applying when you cast Venom and not double dipping. Now they do. So if you threw on Trang's Glove with 25%, Bramble with 50%, Venom, which doesn't have any synergies and is very difficult to get +2 elemental poison damage on your kit normally, is now gaining a 1.75 times multiplier of its total damage output. Not only that, Venom takes all poison damage from all of your gear, truncates it down, captures its bitrate, and then deals however much damage they would deal per frame over a 10 frame window. And let me just very quickly show you the difference of me shooting at a monster and applying a small amount of poison, then me applying a base Venom, and then I'll throw the gear back on so you can see how Venom works now that poison damage is double dipping on our gear. So we have absolutely crap attack rating. It's going to take us a little bit to hit a monster, but let me see if I can get one. All right, so he's been poisoned, and you'll see, where is he? There he's going. Well, he eventually died. It just took him a really, really long time because we have all of this poison damage, but it gets averaged, and there's a bunch of calculations, which if you haven't seen my poison damage resource on Maxroll, I'm not going to reread the entire thing. Just understand that if you're not using something like Venom, all the damage gets added together, but then averaged over the number of sources, and the total length of time the poison is applied over is very long. So we have this enslaved right there, and you'll notice that while they didn't die altogether from the poison damage, the speed at which the poison damage was applied to them was drastically faster. They were brought down to basically 1 hit point in a matter of a second, as opposed to the previous one that took about 5 seconds. So now we've seen all of that, I'll put the Bramble and the Triangles back on. I'll use it to cast Venom, which will increase the Venom damage, and when we applied the poison damage to the target, it will drastically increase it again. So same enslave that we've been shooting at, let's just get 1 arrow shot off on him, And you'll notice that just one shot brought them down to almost dying there, as opposed to before having the bramble and the triangle's gloves on, it was 2 shots and he still hadn't died. If I take any random character here, a slinger, shoot him once, and they're dying now from 1 to 2 shots, whereas previously they literally would not have died from the amount of poison damage that we are dealing. So in a nutshell, that's the difference here. There are tons of builds and skills which apply elemental damage, and you can stack additional elemental damage onto that. While the skill damage was being increased by sources of plus to elemental damage, the added flat damage from charms or gear weren't. So what skills are actually affected by this? The list is pretty long, and I'll just go class by class. For the Amazon, while all of their elemental arrows are in some way affected by this, the best examples would be Exploding Arrow, Immolation Arrow, and Freezing Arrow, since the explosions from these skills carry any elemental damage that you have on your gear, and now that elemental damage that you have on your gear is being increased by your plus to elemental fire or cold damage respectively. So the Fire Boazon, who's using 4 or 5 facets in their gear, or the Ice Matron Boazon that's using the Holy Freeze aura, which adds flat cold damage, are now benefiting from the facets and the Nightwing's Veil that they have, which is another 20% increased cold damage, just to give you an idea of some of the things that the Amazon can use. While the Assassin's Venom skill is an obvious example, the skill Blade Fury actually counts as a ranged skill. Now, while it's doing a percentage of weapon damage, meaning you're only getting a percentage of the elemental damage, you could build out something silly like this assassin. 6 lightning faceted phase blade, 4 lightning faceted dust shroud, dual dream to get a huge benefit from the holy shock aura, which also double dips on the elemental damage from your gear. Add on T-Gods for the 1 to 50 lightning damage, Jonah Jordan for the 1 to 12, and then fill your entire inventory with lightning charms. While this build is a bit sillier, I just wanted to highlight how quickly you can be applying lightning damage from this build. And the cool part about it being you have all these sources of minus enemy lightning resistance, and now that traps also benefit from minus enemy lightning resistance. You could build a hybrid Blade Fury lightning trap sin that's using Death Sentry and Lightning Sentry, and then laying down your own massive amounts of lightning damage, either via your Blade Shield skill, throwing out your Sentinels, as well as Blade Fury itself. While this one isn't immediately obvious, there are actually a ton of amazingly powerful weapons that have huge amounts of elemental damage on them. Most notably Gimmer Shred, which is carrying about 1300 total elemental damage, 500 of which is lightning damage. So you throw on dual Gimmer Shred, a Dream Helmet for the Holy Shock aura, 4 faceted armor, which also gets you flat elemental damage on it, and tons of lightning damage charms. All of a sudden I'm doing 37,000 DPS against a target with infinity on it on a double throw elemental barbarian. These are the types of examples I'm talking about, where you have a lot of different options, and the nuttier you get with how you build it, the wilder the potential gets. The cool part about the Barbarian going even further is the fact that with Double Throw, you can effectively make any elemental build work. So if you're willing to try out different things, using a faceted shield or using a Phoenix for the minus enemy resistance, there's a lot of different ways that you can stack on a ton of damage. And then also, since he's so multifaceted, you can throw in a lot of different sources of pierce as well. So these high elemental damage attacks are hitting multiple targets simultaneously. This is where you get things like the War Strike Elemental Sorceress. Now again, this build isn't a build that's new by any means, and the Sorceress already benefited a bit from the ability to double stack with Lightning Mastery and Dual Dream. But the elemental damage again was not actually benefiting from the double dip when you use War Strike to attack monsters, but now it does. So you're getting the double dip on your Lightning Mastery, which is also double dipping on your Holy Shock aura, which is applying to your throw damage. You have a massive Lightning Mastery for the Nova procs that come out of this weapon, with the chance of hitting multiple targets multiple times per throw. And right now, I haven't done anything else. I haven't really optimized. I'm just casting like a base level enchant on swap with the Shudas, and go ahead and enchant myself. And my throw damage is now 5 to 53,000 damage per projectile. And let's go see what that looks like. Here we got some guys. And yeah, pretty good damage. Now, the druid and the necromancer don't have any skills that can directly benefit from this. Technically speaking, you can make any build a ranged Venom build by using Venom charges on an Arachnid's Mesh or an Endariel's Visage, proccing it from Grief or from Treachery. You can even use multiple shot charge gloves and then put any elemental damage onto any character and then have 60 charges of multiple shot. I don't think that's really viable, but it is something that you can do. But one of the big powerhouses and a place where I feel like this will be tapped into the best is actually on the Paladin. While the obvious include is the same demon machine setup that we use on the sorceress, but on the Paladin, while you yourself are self-wielding Holy Fire, that one makes the most sense and is actually really decent. While you lose a little bit of the maneuverability and screen-wide damage of the sorceress, you look cool as hell, and you do have the ability to scale it a little bit easier in the early game, since you can choose to max out Holy Fire and use it as an effective attack skill regardless. That being said, every one of the elemental offensive auras can benefit from this, so Holy Fire, Holy Freeze, and Holy Shock. Obviously, we just showed the Dual Dream version of this on the sorceress, but what if you were the Dual Dream Warstrike Paladin and not needing to put any points into Holy Shock? Instead, you could put points into Holy Fire and then max out both of their synergies and double dip on that as well from any sources of elemental damage that you have on your gear. The combinations are not endless again, but they're definitely very convincing of some things I think people need to test out. And YouTube viewers, this is where I need your help. Actually, quite literally, I'm not capable of testing out all of the different possibilities here across all the different types of builds and all the different combinations, min-maxing across different skills, etc. There's an entire season of Diablo 2 that I'm trying to play through with my enchant bowsork, who I'm having a great time with. And I'd love to find more builds that can abuse or use these mechanisms that are now in the game to either hilarious effect or powerful effect. So do you think that you built out the perfect elemental damage double throw barbarian and you want to show it off? Build out a D2 planner on max roll, shoot it to me in the Discord, and we'll check it out on stream. Do you think that you found a way to make Widowmaker Poison Guided Arrow Assassin the new queen of PvP? Let me know. I'm not too great at PvP, but I can sure as hell shoot my friends with it and see how it works. Are you positive that you found a way of making full Trangul's Fire Mastery Gimmer Shred Necromancer the next meta-breaking build? Let me see it. I'd love to test it out. If you're somebody who doesn't like going into Discord, just make the planner on max roll and share it down in the comments as well. Even if you just kind of theorycraft what the gear and the overall way of maximizing elemental damage looks like, go ahead and comment down below also. I think there's a huge potential of untapped possibility here, even if it's just meme builds that sure they can only kill stuff on P1, but they look really cool while they do it. I'm fine with that. But I also think that if we keep poking at this and checking out the potential, there might be another really good meta build other than just the enchant bowsork that we can all dig our teeth into and see how it feels. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it either educated or entertained you in some way, or at least got the gears going on your own theory crafting, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.